We all have obsessions, but some people's dominate their lives.
Ah, well, there you are. Welcome. This is my home, and I'm Bob. And this was my living room. How do you explain this to your friends?
This is the room that we haven't used for 21 years, but we're hoping to use it for next year.
If it's got a root that's worth eating, I'll take and I'll bite the root, and I only bite the root, and I'll swallow it, and I discard the head.
But where do these obsessions come from? Are we born with them?
Up and down with the light switch, then I have to click on it.
Can we catch them in childhood? And how are they treated? Bob is a gregarious New Yorker, and he's always out and about in the city's bars and restaurants. He does charity work, and he has lots of friends. But none of them ever gets invited home for dinner. We are the first visitors to enter his apartment in 30 years. Bob is a hoarder. Once something goes into Bob's apartment, it never goes out again. Bob cannot throw anything away.
This was my living room. It is now chaos city here. I have so many beautiful things hiding here. I can't enjoy them. This is where I'm now sleeping because everything is moved over. The other room is the bedroom, which actually I cannot use anymore, and it was originally maintained as a library. The debris, if I stand on it, lose my head. So I'm walking around in an unbalanced world. Whoa, just crazy. Oops.
Bob's got hundreds of things, but not a single home comfort.
For instance, I know that every once in a while I would like to watch a television program, and I know I have a TV over here somewhere, and 5 or 6 years maybe I haven't seen it. Where are you? Oh, there it is. All right, let's see if it's alive. Ah, wonderful, it's alive.
Hoarding can be a form of obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. It's an anxiety disorder that affects 1 in every 50 people, including Bob. The effects can be catastrophic.
My best friends have never been here. My brothers and sisters have not been here in many, many years, maybe almost 30 years.
Not much is known about hoarding, but it may be partly inherited. Other people in Bob's family also hoard. But Bob thinks bad childhood experiences may be as much to blame as his genes.
A lot of it stems from my childhood. I was considered a different kind of person, artist or artistic or whatever. I was beaten and bullied, and I do mean every day. The fear of being seen was the fear of being hit. You know, spending 16 years of your life being physically beaten causes problems. I think anyone would agree with that. In a way, I've created, I think, a nest. I always say when I'm in my bird's nest, I don't know if I'm going to lay an egg or not, but I think it's that you have a wall around you and people can't see you. Therefore, you're safe.
In OCD, the person is bombarded by intrusive, fearful thoughts. Because Bob's hoarding is his way of trying to contain his fears, the thought of throwing things away is terrifying.
When I think about throwing things away, the fear is there, it's very real, getting rid of the clutter. The anxiety is so stressful that you just simply don't even want to think about it. I feel protected, and yet at the same time I feel buried alive. I desperately need to perform some action that's going to result in clearing this up.
After 30 years, Bob's finally decided to look for help. After all, there are millions like him.
Hi, I'm Shirley, and I'm here to show you my home. And this is the accumulation of 31 years of stuff.
Shirley's also a hoarder, but unlike Bob, she has started to make inroads.
It's about 8 inches wide here at the narrowest. It widens up to about, I would say, a foot wide here.
Shirley's begun a treatment program, although there's a long way to go. She and her husband Buzz have a passion for ballroom dancing, which comes in handy.
It's a good thing we're dancers because we have to be very, very graceful. We can have an avalanche, I call it. I could just like touch this stack and the whole thing come careening down.
Shirley says her hoarding began more than 30 years ago, when she was burgled.
I started hoarding after our house was robbed. 3 years later, my father was killed in a robbery attempt, and I started feeling more and more fearful. And somehow, I guess I got this convoluted idea that if I had more stuff, I'd be protected. Somehow, the clutter makes me feel safe. Like a neighbor said it in a joke. Well, if the robbers came to your house, they'd come in and they'd see such a mess that they'd say, the house has already been ransacked, and they'd go home. And the reality is, our house hasn't been robbed since then.
Hoarders are hard to treat. Going to the house to persuade them to throw things away is the most effective way to change them. Dr. Randy Frost, one of the world's leading experts on hoarding, has been to Shirley's house a couple of times.
Shirley, this is your living room, right?
Right, this is the living room.
Now, the last time I was here, I remember it being pretty cluttered like this, but maybe there's some things that have changed. That chair over there is now cleared out, is that right?
Right. I actually sat in this last week.
Oh, okay. Is there an organizational scheme here to all of this?
No, it was just space, and
Okay.
I put it there.
All right.
It's a treasure hunt. That's what it is.
Okay. That was my next question. How do you find things in here that you need?
I don't.
How do other people manage their possessions?
They don't have so much stuff.
In part, yeah. Yeah, that's certainly true.
Today, Dr. Frost is going to try and help Shirley throw something away. He knows that he's likely to encounter resistance.
How about over here? Why are you saving that?
Because it's so beautiful.
Okay, so
I just thought it was
it doesn't
lovely.
have any value in terms of your need, no instrumental value, we call it, for you. You don't need that for anything, right? And
No, but I'm not willing to throw it away.
we had lots of people in our studies who describe their homes as cocoons or bunkers and so forth. So really this sense of being vulnerable seems to be involved somehow. These possessions come to signal safety. Even though a newspaper really isn't going to offer any protection, it sort of feels like I'm vulnerable again, I'm being violated if I lose it or get rid of it. You could see with Shirley the wall that we hit with that picture. Okay, Shirley, here's the challenge. Can you throw this away?
I'll consider it for the future, but for right now, I really am not willing to throw that away.
Okay.
Shirley has been in treatment for a year. Although her achievements seem limited, very few hoarders manage to get as far as she has. But the next phase of her treatment is going to be more difficult.
The next step is to throw things away despite feeling bad and get over that feeling. What she'll have to face is pushing herself through some of the distress that she's going to experience when she throws something away.
I basically feel like my house is a reclamation project in process, and a coming attraction will be next year we're going to do the living room And that way I'll be able to sit on my sofa and watch TV in the living room like real, normal people. And I'm looking forward to it.
This is the next revolution in television. It's called Sky Plus.
Not everybody can leave their obsessions at home. Liz Agar is a successful, sporty 26-year-old, but she has an obsession she's deeply ashamed of.
It's passing for normal because people think you're normal and you're not. I just know that I don't want people to know or even have a hint of what they can see at the top of my head. It's an absolute ritual. I'll sit and I'll wade my hands through my hair until I find a wiry hair or a hair that feels alien to my head. I'll pull it out and then I'll take it and I'll look at it. And if it's got a root that's worth eating, I'll take and I'll bite the root, and I only bite the root, and I'll swallow it, and I discard the hair. And it's almost like I've injected something into my body, and it just calms and soothes. It's almost like I'm taking a needle and injecting something that just takes it all away. But the thing is, it doesn't take it all away, because you're just stressing yourself up more by destroying yourself, and being a woman and having the main core of your beauty being your hair. I think that in itself is its own destruction. And like sometimes I think I'm like a manged animal, and then sometimes I think I'm fine. I know I'm normal as a person, but deep at the back of my mind, looks-wise, I almost feel almost retarded. And I think that comes through the feeling that I've got from other people.
Liz has trichotillomania. She can't resist the urge to pull out her hair. Like millions of others with this obsession, she's quite normal in every other way. But she's been pulling her hair since she was 12, and her bald patch causes her acute embarrassment. Liz has no idea why she started to pull out her hair, but research in Salt Lake City may provide a clue. At the University of Utah, they've made a very interesting discovery in mice. This mouse is perfectly normal, apart from one thing.
And what these mice do is overgroom themselves, and they initially start by just removing all the hair. For example, on this particular mouse, you can see that on the side, its hair has been removed. And what it'll do is continue to remove that hair until all its body hair that it can reach will actually be removed.
These mice have been specially created. Scientists altered a single gene in a normal mouse, and this is the result. Having found that a single defective gene can produce this behavior in mice, they're looking to see if the same defective gene occurs in humans.
Then we're struck gold. We can treat the disease with different drugs to see which ones are effective and which are not effective, and then explore it in much greater detail. And then if it has an effect, then one can actually then go into the human patient population and see whether this would also work in human patients.
Understanding how gene defects can lead to obsessive hair pulling would be important, and not just for trichotillomaniacs, because faulty genes may also play a part in other more common obsessive conditions. Stephanie Laudenslager has another form of obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Okay. Red light.
Her obsessions centre around her baby son, Jake.
When I come to stop signs, I have to look at him while I'm stationary for fear that someone's going to come up and take him, open the door. I have to start the car before I take my eyes off him. Ah! When I'm moving, I figure nobody can get to him.
Stephanie's protective maternal instincts have gone into overdrive. It's a form of OCD that sometimes afflicts new mothers.
Don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. Just doesn't like. Okay. Okay. To set this trap, I'm going to use a video cassette, which I shall lean against the door. Then I'm going to take this pen and line it up along the green rectangle. And I'm going to point this napkin so the edge, if you follow it with your eye, matches up with the corner of my wall.
Stephanie fears that someone might kidnap Jake, even when she's at home with the doors locked and the alarm on.
I'm not sure if somebody might have gotten in the house while I wasn't here, so I'll set a trap. It's so pathetic.
For a walk?
Stephanie knows her thoughts are irrational, but they're beyond her control. Protecting Jake from every conceivable danger makes life hard.
Get your stick.
When I can't take my eyes off Jake, it's literal. I stare at him. If I glance away, even like this, it's a chance for something to happen. He has to be in front of me so that I can see him the entire time, so that if somebody walks by, I know that they aren't going to bump him, spit on him, grab him, touch him, inject him with something, whatever. Take him.
Like many people with obsessive-compulsive disorder, Stephanie also has a fear of contamination. She avoids litter or spots on the pavement in case the wheels of the buggy touch something deadly. Passers-by pose a double threat. They could kidnap Jake or contaminate him.
Just need to make sure nobody was near him. Cigarette? If I looked away, I'll have to turn my stroller around, look behind me to see if anybody was in the area, but then I worry that maybe I took my eyes off him while I was checking to see if anybody was behind us. So I'll turn back around, and then I'll turn back around the other way, and I'll just spin around in circles until I feel relatively sure that it's okay. Sometimes it's hard for me to go for a walk because I can never get home, because I'm constantly having to turn around and go the other way because there's somebody coming.
Stephanie is particularly obsessed with one source of danger.
If I had to be specific, I would say AIDS is probably my number one fear, or anything that's contracted through bodily fluids. You process everything that could possibly happen, all the scenarios that could possibly happen. Let's say someone brushes against you in a crowd. It could have been an accident. It could have been on purpose. The person could have an infectious disease. The person could have had a cut on their hand. You could have a cut on your hand, and they could have a cut on the hand, and the two cuts could have brushed against each other at that exact moment. That person could have just come from the bathroom and never washed their hands. Maybe that it could go on and on.
Before Jake was born, Stephanie was diagnosed as having OCD. Her obsessional fear of contamination leads to compulsive rituals which she uses to manage her anxiety.
When I am going to interact with Jake in some way, I have to be certain my hands have been just cleaned. And they have to be scoured clean.
The urge to perform these compulsions is so strong that in this half hour Stephanie washed her hands 22 times.
It's torturous. I wash my hands continuously. I know I try to stop myself, but it's almost like my feet begin moving for the sink, and I'm trying to tell myself not to do it, but I'm desperate and I have to. But it dries your hands out and your hands crack, and then it gets to the point where I can't close them more than this because the knuckles will crack open and bleed.
It's always been there. It's been noticeable, but it's been manageable. We could joke about it. We could kid her about it. We could do things, to set her off. But it wasn't an issue until Jake was born, our son Jake. Since then, it's been uncontrollable.
Stephanie's fear of contamination has colonized every aspect of her life. Her whole house is subject to a decontamination ritual as strict as the one she uses on herself.
I have to clean in a certain way, and I start at the front door and I work backward. Once I start cleaning, I can't stop. And I have to decontaminate in the perfect way, like nothing can go wrong. If it does, the contamination jumps to something else. It's really frightening when something gets contaminated because you know it's only a matter of time before it takes over everything.
Once, people like Stephanie would have been dismissed as just peculiar. Now, new brain scanning techniques give clues as to what's going on. What seems to happen is the frontal region of the brain registers there's dirt about, then sends a message to another part called the caudate nucleus, which triggers the urge to clean. Normally, that's it. You get on with other thoughts. But in someone with OCD, the message seems to get stuck, bouncing back and forth between something's wrong and do something.
Get in. Go ahead.
Ready? Hold on to your ball. Hold on to your ball.
Like lots of people with OCD, Stephanie has quite a few obsessions and compulsions. She's about to start treatment, and her soon-to-be therapist recognizes that she's not a straightforward case.
Stephanie has what I would call OCD galore. She's got a bit of everything. Her main worries have to do with harm, but she's worried about contamination that might result in harm. She worries about not checking everything, which might result in harm.
When I unplug something, I stare at it because I'm not quite sure if I unplugged it. And I just sit there staring. And then I turn the light off, but then I have to go back and look again. And I might do that 5 times.
She has fears of symmetry, things being not symmetrical.
Like if I go like this, I would have to go to my right. But now that's 2, so I have to go right, left. But now I'm at 4, so I have to go right, left, right. And now it's still there, so right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Okay, that'll be good. Ready? What do you want to do with that?
Stephanie is desperate to start treatment as she realizes the real danger to her son comes from her obsessions.
I'm extremely worried about the effect this is having on Jake. I'm so desperate to take good care of him. And the OCD has a negative effect on him. On his dresser is the soap pump. He puts his hand at it and rubs his hands together. He was doing that at 1 year old. And that struck me that I need to do something because no 1-year-old should be, pretending to wash it. That was the first thing he pretended to do was wash his hands.
Jake may be learning OCD behavior from Stephanie. He may also have inherited a genetic predisposition to develop it from her. But research is revealing another terrifying way that some children may get OCD.
Hello. Thought I'd show you some of my patterns. When I'm over here, I have to go my feet against the wall a lot.
Taylor is 8. Her strange behavior started a few years ago.
I've been reading in my bed. I better get out. Oh, for some reason my OCD right now is telling me to ruffle my feet against the wood, which I don't normally do.
Taylor has a variety of pathways, patterns and rituals she must follow about the house.
It doesn't make me feel very good because it's just hard. My OCD tells me to do stuff, so I feel like I want to. Now I have to do all of them exactly the same. It feels like it's a tornado, practically. Like you have to do this, or you're going to be my slave for the rest of your life. That's what it feels like. Now I think I'll go out. Right? Right. I just had to do that because my OCD. See, I have to go up and down with the light switch. Then I have to push on my vanity like this, see? Then I have to go on out like this. Bye! The feeling's like My brain's telling me to do this, or I'll be in a dungeon for the rest of my life if I don't do what it says. That's what it feels like. That's how hard the pressure is. I'm like, do it, or your life depends on it.
Taylor's OCD is different from other children's because it follows a certain pattern.
There. Now I have to do my sock.
Even though she's taking anxiety-reducing drugs, every few months Taylor's symptoms suddenly become very severe.
Oh, I'm done now.
When she's at her worst, she'll get stuck on furniture. She will stop writing because she gets stuck on the page. Her pencil gets stuck. She becomes oppositional.
She can be washing her hands and her forearms touch the countertop and she becomes stuck, or her hands are stuck to the faucet. And we call it stuck because it's like she's glued to it and she has to pull her off.
Her obsessional behaviour seemed to begin after a bad throat infection at the age of 3. Now, every time she gets a similar infection, her OCD seems to get worse.
She immediately becomes flared up to where she's practically disabled. She stops functioning, stops writing, stops dressing herself, gets stuck on everything. That heightened flare-up lasts for about 3 weeks, and at that point, the OCD symptoms start dropping off. It takes from the time she gets an infection until the time she's back to her normal baseline. It's 8 to 10 weeks.
The suggestion that it's possible to get OCD from an infection is a very controversial one, but it's being actively researched. At the University of Florida, Dr. Tanya Murphy has been studying blood samples from Taylor and 34 other children to see if there is any connection between infection and their OCD symptoms. To her great surprise, in half the children, she's found a connection between a common bacterial infection called streptococcus and times when the children's OCD is worse.
The controversy on this is that kids get sick all the time. The average kid gets a group A strep infection like once every 2 years. So, that would be the controversy that maybe there isn't an association. It's just happening by coincidence. So I think we're going to have to follow them a little bit longer and make sure that there's a definitive relationship.
If it's shown that a mental illness like OCD can sometimes be triggered by a common childhood infection, then this will open the door to a whole new area of research.
We could find specific immune therapies. I mean, they have antibodies that attack certain parts of the immune process and prevent the symptoms from happening. There's other types of immune therapies. It's possible they have a vaccine.
The suggestion is that only a small minority of OCD cases are likely to have any link with infection. Taylor's parents hope a mixture of drugs and psychological treatment will boost their daughter's own determination to lead a normal life.
I feel much better, but I need to learn to go against my OCD.
Why?
Why? So for the rest of my life, my OCD will boss me around if I don't know how to defeat it.
With some forms of obsessive behaviour, the obsessives themselves become the therapist.
Hello, I'm
Bob.
Shirley. You're Bob.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Bob the hoarder has come to Shirley to pick up some tips.
Oh, this looks familiar.
Oh, okay.
Over the last few months, Shirley has managed to throw a number of things away.
It's a little bit funny. You have to turn around. This is
Right.
where I keep my greeting cards and books in the bookcase.
This is funny, Shirley. Do you notice that you have a road atlas book here?
Oh, yeah. Well,
to get me over here.
Oh, okay. I would say keep it simple and keep it small, filling up one recycling bucket a week. maybe call me Saturday and say, you know, start at the
That you
beginning.
did something.
That you did one bag on Friday.
All right.
Okay,
Right.
You're comfortable with that. Now, I don't want to be pushing you.
No, because that to me is a realistic goal.
Remember, inch by inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard.
Okay.
You know.
Well, Shirley can do it. I can do it. An inch at a time. No, an inch is a cinch. A yard is hard.
It may take more than a masterclass with Shirley to get Bob within sight of his own floor.
Look at that. I can't. I need that. I can't throw that away.
Liz, the hair puller, is also trying an unusual form of treatment. She's tried numerous treatments for her condition in the past, and now she's decided to tackle her problem in a very different way.
Here goes, then, yeah, it's actually going now. We don't shove it right down because the glue needs to grab. It's got to have something traction. Yeah. Is it just the outside that you glued? Yes, the middle is all free.
She's having a hairpiece made which will be glued to the top of her head. She hopes that by wearing it for a few months, she will break the cycle of hair pulling.
The colour's really good. The glue will loosen up 4 to 6 weeks. You will feel when you need to come back.
Sophia, thank you so much. I feel like I've turned from a frog to a princess.
Okay.
Stephanie's starting her therapy. She's been taking Prozac, which often helps OCD, but it hasn't been enough. Dr. Yadin has come to begin cognitive behavioural therapy. Today, Stephanie's going to bring in the mail, which she hasn't done for a year.
Okay. So how nervous is this making you? Give me a number.
It's 40 right now.
40 right now? That's
Maybe
good.
30. It's okay.
It's low? Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It makes me nervous to put it down. I don't want to put it down anywhere.
Okay, I will help you.
For Stephanie, who has a terror of contamination from bodily fluids, the thought of handling envelopes which someone might have licked shut is particularly repugnant.
Is recognizable.
The idea is to expose Stephanie to situations that cause her anxiety, but then prevent her from doing the compulsive cleaning rituals she normally would do to contain it.
40, maybe.
40.
Getting out 40.
Okay, good. Good. Just go for it. Just pounce on it. Don't be too careful. Good. Excellent. All right. And now that you've done this, your hands are contaminated. Is it? Is it difficult? How difficult, Stephanie?
50.
A 50? That's okay. You can tolerate it. It's all right. Remember, I told you it's going to be very difficult for you. Okay? What could you touch? I mean, touching Jake would be too hard for you right now, would it? Okay, what can you touch that's not that hard? Your
The
hair?
couch.
The couch? You could touch the couch?
The back of the couch.
Okay, so let's do that. Ready? Good. And when you do exposures, I would like you to touch the couch everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I know it's hard for you. Okay. Can I do something to help with the anxiety?
Can you touch the couch first?
Yes, absolutely. I want you to touch it like this, okay?
Okay.
Stephanie's
Both
contaminated
hands
her
are no
hands, and now Dr. Yadin wants her to spread the contamination around.
Now that's very difficult for you, but you're able to do it.
It's better.
It is better already?
Yeah.
Good. You know, the anticipation usually makes it worse.
Yeah.
So you want to pounce on it as fast as you can. So you see what happens is, and the reason it's called exposures is it's the things you've been avoiding and you don't get a chance to test. You were very courageous already. You might as well capitalize on it.
Stephanie has to spread the alien germs she imagines are on the letter all over the couch.
I'm going to move so that you can do it.
Infecting the couch is one thing, but can Stephanie go one stage further and expose her son Jake to the germs?
Good. I like the energy that you're showing going towards...
I'm angry at it.
You angry at the OCD? Yeah. Good. I like that. I want you to be angry at the OCD, not at yourself. Yeah. Okay? I'm angry at your OCD too. It's ruining your life. Yeah. I want us both to be able to...
I can handle Jake.
You can?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Come here, honey. Oh, well, maybe not.
Why?
Are you sure it's okay?
It's wonderful.
You sure it's
It is
all right to
okay.
do it?
It's okay to do it. Yes, I'm positive.
They won't harm him.
When we go to the higher items, I won't reassure you, but for the first time, absolutely.
Put him on the couch.
Good. Good.
Put him on the couch.
Yeah. Just hold him for a little while. Yeah, just hold him for a little while. Hi, Mommy. Hi, Mommy. How anxious
It's okay,
are you?
though. It's okay to put him on the couch.
It is okay to put him on the couch. It is. Because remember, you just touched and you...
Okay.
And we're just doing an exposure, and it's...
I'm not a bad mother if I do that.
You're asking me for reassurance? Okay. You're okay? Hi, Dick. He doesn't know me very well. Good. All right. How does it feel? What are your suds? How nervous?
60 going down. 75% of people with OCD show some improvement with cognitive behavioral therapy.
Our experience with other people who have this kind of OCD are that many of them will get a lot better by the end of treatment.
No, it's making me feel free.
Stephanie's treatment may be changing more than just habit and attitude. Brain scans show that people like Stephanie have abnormally high levels of activity in the areas affected by their obsessional thoughts and actions. One study has shown that just 8 weeks of the kind of therapy that Stephanie is receiving can physically change the brain and reduce activity in these areas to a normal level. Some people's OCD is resistant to drugs and psychological treatments. At the University of Leuven in Belgium, preparations are underway for an experimental operation which is being tried to treat this group. Claire Deer is 40, and for her, this is the last hope.
She has very severe OCD. She has a lot of obsessions, a lot of compulsive actions. She washes herself from morning until evening. And there's self-disgust.
I think I'm dirty, and I make everything where I sit, or sleep, or go. I make everything dirty.
She is extremely anxious most of the time, and there are periods of severe depression also.
It's ruined my life, in fact. Yes.
And this has been going on for 22 years. This patient was very desperate. She really didn't know how to go on. There were some suicidal thoughts.
Until now, the last resort for people like Claire was physically to sever the brain circuit active in OCD. Instead of doing this, Professor Nuttin will insert electrodes into the same area and try to disrupt the circuit with an electrical current. It seems to work better than cutting bits out and has the added bonus of being reversible. You can simply turn the current off. It takes 6 hours, and most of that time is spent working out with painstaking precision exactly where the electrodes will be put into Claire's brain. A millimeter's error and the wire entering Claire's brain could hit a blood vessel and cause a fatal brain hemorrhage. This is only the 5th time this operation has been done, and a team from America are here to watch as they're starting to do the procedure in the United States. When Professor Nuttin is completely confident about the trajectory he must take, a hole is bored into Claire's skull and a hollow tube is pushed down to the exact spot where the electrodes must go.
Which is about 24 or 25 millimeters until we reach target point. So we leave it in there until we have the other electrode available, and then we withdraw that one and put the final electrode in that space.
The electrodes have 4 terminals through which varying amounts of current can be passed.
Now we have to contact.
The electrodes are now fed down through the tube into Claire's brain. When they're in the correct position, they're cemented into place. Wires are left protruding from Claire's skull. When the operation is complete, they'll be run under her skin and attached to a subcutaneous battery pack.
I mean, the right electrode is connected to this one and the left electrode is connected.
By the next morning, Claire has woken up and is about to have the electrodes turned on for the first time.
Do you feel anything?
No.
And now? Out.
Professor Nutin will vary the stimulation on each side of the brain over the next few months until he finds the level of charge that has the maximum effect. He's done the operation 4 times. 3 patients have shown an improvement in their OCD. Claire will have to wait several months to see if it has any effect on her.
Would you like to wash now, or are you thinking of contamination?
Claire, who before the operation had been housebound for 20 years, has started making trips. Today she's at an exhibition with Professor Nutin. Claire has also resumed her education.
I'm going to school. Again, I'm learning mathematics, chemistry, physics, Dutch, and psychology.
Professor Nutin is still adjusting the amount of electrical stimulation to Claire's brain.
My general impression is that there clearly is a beneficial effect in Claire, but we're working on choosing the right parameters, and we expect that we can still improve.
Her psychiatrist, Dr. Gabriels, has also noticed a big improvement.
She was very timid, she was inhibited, and now she's more talkative, she laughs more. She's becoming into the world again. Without surgery, it wouldn't have been possible.
My dream would be to meet somebody and to have a child, maybe a baby, yes.
Six months after seeing Shirley, Bob has been able to throw away several items, even though the overall level of clutter in his apartment has risen.
I am proud to say that I did get rid of some of the radios and things that were dead and of absolutely no use to me. I did create a little void in space here, which is really very helpful. When I had the flu, I got rid of the medicine bottles right away. And that sounds so silly, but that was a major effort. And since it's only a few months since I saw Shirley, that's a tremendous movement forward for me.
It's been 3 months since Liz had her wig fitted. Now she's going to see how her hair has been doing, protected from her pulling fingers.
Tell me what the regrowth is like. Is it quite bushy?
Oh God, it's excellent. I'm amazed. I'm really amazed.
The wig goes back on. She'll wear it for a further 6 months.
Brush.
But has this actually changed anything?
Okay, doke. You ready for the road again?
Thank you. I do pull sometimes, but I know it's something that's not going to come overnight. But the pulling that I'm doing now is nothing compared to what I've been doing. And I probably pulled 20 times in the space of four weeks. So there's definitely a vast improvement, and the urge has dissipated completely.
No. Stephanie has been through 9 sessions of her therapy now.
I'm well on my way to life again, and have made incredible progress in many small ways.
One of the most important things is that she can now let Jake pick things off the ground and behave like a normal child while she behaves like a normal mother.
I've been able to reorganize in my mind what is something to be fearful of and what is not. Jake and I are a team, and we're out there discovering together. Because for a year, I stopped experiencing things and looking at things.
Bark. Gotta look for more of those, see if you see any. See if you find any.
Something that I never would have been able to do before, I can do without even thinking about it. I can let spontaneous things happen. You can call that a cure, but the OCD's not gone. The obsessions, gosh, the obsessions maybe are gone. Compulsions are, no, the obsessions are maybe still there. I don't know. It's hard to say when you become, you know, who is normal anyway? You know, who is normal?
3 men who've turned complaining into an art form in an hour's time. And in the meantime, after the break, our Obsessives Night continues, meeting people who suffer from a debilitating mental illness, compulsive obsessive disorder.